So today our caption line, still in Book 1, Canto 3, one soul's ambition lifted up the race. A power worked, but none knew whence it came. We go back a few lines once again. It is Sri Aurobindo has projected Aswapati as one of the protagonists in his whole epic, Savitri, as we all know, and one of the three is Aswapati, the other two being Savitri and Satyavan. What is the protagonist? He is the one who is the performer. He plays the main role. So the role here of Aswapati is one. He is destined with a task which has been given by the divine. So according to that plan, he travels through all the worlds to seek the solutions of earthly problems that beset humanity and help the multitude to go forward. So here, one and harmonious by the Maker's skill, the human in him paced with the divine. All these things are spoken about Aswapati only. One and harmonious by the Maker's skill, the human in him paced with the divine. His acts betrayed not the interior flame. Because he has been given that task, he has to face the world, the earth, and also he has to forge the greatness of his front to earth. He has to face the earth, and forge means he has to forging means actually it is something which is mixing something with something else. So here in this context, because the earth, the humanity on earth is still full of problems and difficulties and going forward with a very slow pace. So there has to be someone who, with the divine task, has to come down here on earth, and he has to play a role of protagonist, that is a task of being a pioneer. And in that task, what he does, he has to go beyond the borders of the humanity and bring those powers which are operative beyond the arc, beyond the ken of humanity. Because humanity as it is limited in its nature, as we all know. So here his role is to travel through all the worlds beyond that borders the humanity and bring back the higher spiritual powers, and in him let those powers work in him, and in doing so he becomes, or he grows in consciousness, and he passes on to that growth of consciousness in him to others. So A genius, a genius heightened in his body's cells that knew the meaning of his fate-hedged works. He is already a genius in him, but that genius, more than the humanly known, it is the spirit which is present in him, which is divine or God's delegate. And because it is there in him, it heightened in his body's cells. Even the cells also now know that it is the spirit which leads Aswapati for the given task, that knew the meaning of his fate-hedged works. Fate-hedged, hedged means to limit. As it is, humanity, as I told a few minutes back, that humanity as it is limited in its working. Even if general humanity have lot of ideas and ideals and pursue them, they cannot achieve all of those because they are either limited in mind or in vitality or in the physical body even, or all of them together. So they have a limit because fate creeps in. Again, how the fate creeps in? Because of our karma. So each human being on earth is subject to karma, and according to the fruit of the karma, we are subject to fate's working in us, which keeps on working in human life. So that is why we are limited. Humanity is limited in its achieving its ideals. Aswapati also it fate-hedged that, but he knew the meaning of his fate-hedged works, akin to the march of unaccomplished powers beyond life's arc in spirit's immensities. But although Aswapati is also such one among the humanity who is fate-hedged, he also has the working of fate in him, but still because he is given a task by the divine himself to carry out or help the humanity to progress further, he also has the higher spiritual powers working in him, which is beyond the spirit's immensities, the life's arc in spirit's immensities, because there's a borderline to which we can work upon through our intelligence, to our capacity, human capacity. But that is why it is limited. But beyond that, there starts the planes in which, in those domains, the spirit works. In different domains, the spirit works. It is immense. And now Aswapati has access to those planes of consciousness or spirit. So he carries those powers back and work in his nature so that he can pass on to the others in the world. Apart, he lived in his mind's solitude, a demigod shaping the lives of men. That is why he lives in solitude, because he is beyond the general mind, because he is gone now to the higher sphere of spirituality. And a demigod shaping the lives of men. He is almost like a god doing God's work here and shaping the lives of other men. Then comes one soul's ambition lifted up the race. A power worked, but none knew whence it came. As it is, this is the way in which the chosen one, like Aswapati, work for God's humanity. They take up the burden of all in a fundamental way and strive strive to communicate in others their own growth by words, by acts, by thoughts, by feelings. So when Aswapati does all these things in him, in his own being, and he grows conscious, then automatically all that he has done in his being, it passes on to others also. And although others, they do not know what is happening, but they still receive what the pioneer is doing without even knowing. They receive, they are inspired, they also follow the new element in life. Their thought process changes, their words changes, their deed changes, and in the process they are also uplifted to a higher stature. A power worked, but none knew whence it came. A power which is being worked out by the divine in Aswapati, which is being passed on to others, but others, they do not know what is happening, but still they are receiving it and following it in their lives. The universal strengths were linked with his, feeling our smallness with their boundless braids. He drew the energies that transmute an age. Now, although he remains on earth, all these strengths, all these powers of the universe are now linked to his being, his mind, his body, feeling our smallness with their boundless braids. That is why he feels isolated or seems to be in solitude, because he cannot, I mean, nobody is there to share all these things. Without even knowing, they receive it, but they do not know how it is being worked out through Aswapati. So, feeling our smallness, earth is too small for all those spiritual things to realize. So now is the boundless braids of the spirit in which Aswapati moves. He drew the energies that transmute an age. Now he draws energies from those spiritual realms which can transmute an age. Transmute means completely change and bring in something new altogether for this age in which the humanity lives. Immeasurable by the common look, he made great dreams a mold for coming things and cast his deeds like bronze to front the years. Common looks, common human being cannot measure these things. But in meanwhile, Aswapati makes all the dreams a mold for coming things. Whatever he does in himself, it becomes a pathway for the future of humanity, which the present humanity is oblivious of. His walk through time outstripped the human stride. Normally, when we walk, when it is a big a little longer in our step, it's called a stride. That much we can go at one time. Now, look at him, Aswapati. His walk through time outstripped the human stride. But as it is, he walks, but his walk, because he is under the working of the Spirit, his walk, even which seems to be normal, it outstripped the human stride. The best a human can walk, the longest step, he outstrips that even in his normal walk. That is, he's doing something for the future. That is why lonely his days and splendid like the suns. A sun is always in the sky, a single entity. It radiates all its rays and it remains single. There are so many planets and stars moving around on their own axis with their tasks, specific tasks. But sun, being sun, is one single unit entity. With its splendor, it remains one single and is in lonely his days. That is why it's called lonely his days and splendid like the suns. Like the sun, he also is lonely in this whole earth because he is destined to take the humanity one step forward in God's plan. So with that we come to the end of Canto 3 of Book 1. In fact, this reminds me of Sri Aurobindo himself. The whole world, the whole earth doesn't know what he is doing. Even during all the, you know about all these things, still I'll just recount a particular incident when the World War was going on. Remaining in his upstairs room, he did whatever needed to be done, spiritually of course, with his spiritual power, and nobody knew what was going on. When it was almost on the verge of defeat for the Allies in the hands of that demon, we can say, who wanted to rule the whole earth with his nefarious powers, who would have even come towards this end also, towards South Asia. In fact, he had the plans to gobble up, swallow up the whole earth. And that would have been the end of one civilization altogether. But that was not to be. That is what divine is. Sri Aurobindo, remaining in his room upstairs, did spiritually what was needed at that particular point of time. And that changed the fate of everything, the whole war scenario. And he was shaping the future of humanity once again. But nobody knew who is doing what. Allied powers were rejoicing, and they thought it is because of their might only that everything has gone in their favor. But here in that particular room, sitting on his bed, he did whatever was required to change the fate of civilization once again. Otherwise, it would have gone awry. The whole civilization would have sunk once again. It would have been what we normally call an apocalypse, proloy. But it was saved by the spiritual powers of Sri Aurobindo. Of course, he had to pay for this. So that is another story. So it reminds me of his work as a protagonist, the pioneer of the divine's work here, to take the humanity to the next level of consciousness. So that's it for the day. Jai Ma. If you have anything, please. Okay then. Thank you.